All right.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to yet another Ironside Office Hours session. How are you doing, Bob?
I'm doing really good today. I'll tell you what, this summer is trucking right along though. My daughter sent me a list of things that she wants for school next year or in a month. And yeah, we're here already. Like August is a few days.
I
Hmm.
know. So crazy. I actually can't believe it. The weeks are completely flying by.
Yeah.
Well, if anyone is new here, these are our bi-weekly office hour sessions. I'm Paris Williams, the MC for these sessions, joined here with Bob Miller, the owner of Ironside IT Partners. Each session, we start with a brief topic and then we open the floor for Q&A. So at any time, you can drop your questions in the Q&A box down below. They don't have to be related to the topic that we're covering, just any IT or cybersecurity questions that you guys have. Feel free to drop them in the Q&A box. So, today's topic is going to be technology debt, the interest rate you never see. How years of small IT decisions quietly become major business expenses. So, Bob is going to be covering that session topic. Bob, I'll hand it over to you.
All right. I'll share my screen here. And yeah, we're talking about the technology debt that a lot of businesses have. And we run into this a lot when we talk with prospects and new clients because it's an interest rate, just like a credit card would be. It's an interest. It's an interest that you have to pay. The bill does come due. Those years of IT decisions, putting things off or just trying to get by, they become major business expenses. Before we get started, I'm Bob Miller, the founder of Ironside IT Partners. Started the company in 2005, a little over 20 years, almost 21 years ago now, actually. Formed the company because I felt like small businesses, weren't getting really good support. They weren't getting quality help. They didn't have an IT partner that would help them to solve their problems with a sense of moral responsibility. What we call it now today, we call it a moral obligation that we have for our clients, both for information technology, cybersecurity, and also helping to protect businesses by showing them what their legal risk is. So that's a little bit about us and how we got started. Back to today and this session here. I love this image. It's a bridge that's crumbling. We know bridges across the United States. We're having that problem about 10 years ago. Started doing inspections and found out just how bad some of the bridges are. Imagine if this is a bridge, would you want to drive across it, held together by duct tape, a little bit of spit maybe in there. You see rebar poking through. That's where a lot of businesses are today with their information technology infrastructure and their servers and PCs kind of held together on hopes and prayers and dreams. And that is not a good strategy. We all understand financial debt. You borrow today, you pay it back later, but you have to pay it back with interest. And technology works exactly the same way. What you borrow today, meaning what you don't take care of today, you got to pay that back later, and it's going to cost a lot more. It's not going to just be the same cost deferred. It's going to be the same cost exponentially increased because you have to do the same thing plus all the other things that you have to do to fix what happened along the way. So, what is technology debt? Well, here are some examples: keeping your server for another year past its lifespan, delaying PC replacements. You can get by for a little while with that. Ignoring documentation. Again, you can get by a little bit with that. We're going to talk more about that in another slide. I think that a lot of businesses don't really have a good documentation strategy. Your firewall subscription lapsing or skipping security projects. Please don't do that. Keeping unsupported software. A big one that we see is only replacing switches when they die, meaning waiting until they die, which might take a little while. I mean, they might last a good 10 years. But just like with a car, you don't want to wait till it dies till you replace it. You want to have a plan for replacement. Um, and then just kind of the idea of quote, we'll do it next year, or we'll do it in 2 years, we'll do it later. Well, debt doesn't feel like debt at first. Keeping your server for another year, that's keeping the status quo. The server is going to be, it'll be fine. It's kind of like the attitude there. Um, and same thing with delaying PC replacements. It doesn't really feel like debt at first because they're running, they're working. And if one dies, we'll replace it, right? That's no big deal, right? Ignoring documentation. Um, think though about how that catches up to you when you can't, um, when you're not keeping that documentation updated, or you're just simply not documenting it, and then an employee leaves, and now nobody knows how to do something. And we can go through this entire list again about how debt doesn't feel like debt at first. The firewall subscription lapses. Well, you know what? Day one is going to be just like day 365 yesterday. It's going to continue to give you protection, the content filter, things like that. It's going to continue to protect you. You're not going to get updates, but you're not going to notice that right away. A month later, a threat could come along. A threat could come along. A few months later, a threat absolutely could come along and get you in the butt. So we can go through this same thing. Only I mentioned switches in the last slide again. Only replacing switches when they die. Don't wait until they die to replace them, because when they go out, you could lose uh, anywhere from 24 to 48 people, or or more. They would not be able to work on the network. It could be access points also affected. Same thing. And also keeping that technology current is important. That's good for your cybersecurity posture and for good network design. A good network design keeps things running efficiently. It keeps things from running slowly. I had a doctor's appointment this morning, and the person at check-in said the same thing that they do at every doctor's appointment that I go to. And I'm sure you've seen this too. Oh, sorry, hold on, we just have to wait for my computer. It's so slow. Or how about this one? Sorry, we just have to wait for my computer. They just replaced it, but it's just as slow as the last one. And that's because it's not the computer, it's the network design. That's the problem. Or it's the software design. It's something else like that. And if you are on the ball with your infrastructure, if you're on the ball with your software design, your line of business applications, you can save your employees from that it does not have to be their life. And we all know with employees. I always say this, anybody who's been in a meeting with me for more than a few meetings that might have heard, it's so important to keep your employees gruntled. Don't let them get disgruntled. Keep them gruntled so that way they stay nice and happy. And one of the biggest ways to keep them happy is making sure that they have functioning technology. So, some places where technology debt hides, old computers and servers, as we mentioned, and aging infrastructure, those switches or the firewalls, the things that are crucial for your business to stay operating with its employees. Those are visible ways. What about invisible ways where technology debt hides? One would be tribal knowledge. Tribal knowledge meaning that information that you have that is critical to the running of your business is siloed just within a few people or a department. Or, as the third bullet point here, is maybe just one guy knows how to do something. And that's it. It's not anywhere else. Such tribal knowledge. That's technology debt. And that doesn't even necessarily have to be specifically about your infrastructure, your IT. It can be about basically anything that your business relies on. Having that documented is integral to the functioning of your business. Old integrations. We're actually in the process now of going through some of our integrations and upgrading them. That's a process we do pretty regularly because of the business that we're in. But we're going through some of those older integrations and replacing them. For us, it's about functionality, but for many businesses, it's about security. Again, we change ours pretty regularly, so it's not so much about security. But for many businesses that don't change their integrations, they don't upgrade their integrations for 5, 10 years or more, that's security for sure. And that's how your business transits its information and its data, and that can lead to all kinds of compliance issues and things like that. Another invisible place that technology debt hides is temporary workarounds, and these are the most common. This is where we just need to get it working again. We've got employees that need this. Let's get it functional. And so let's do a quick workaround. And I'm all about quick workarounds. You got to make people functional. Um, but as soon as the quick workaround is implemented, the very next thing to do is not to go get coffee or go get lunch or go home at the end of the day. It's to take an extra 3 minutes and schedule yourself to evaluate that workaround and what needs to be done to move this thing forward so that it's no longer a workaround and it's no longer temporary to where there's a permanent replacement, a permanent fix. Um, another invisible Another invisible place where technology hides is shadow IT. And we've talked about that quite a bit here, but shadow IT, um, it's also it's a thing where again the bill comes due with if you let employees go around and do their own, get their own software applications, find their own solutions, or if the solution that the organization, the company offers them is not sufficient, again, they're going to try to get their job done because that's their job is to get their job done, and they're well-meaning, but those things come at a high cost, like data leakage. Just think about data leakage with just shadow IT. And if that goes unchecked, and that's not just one or two people, now it's 30 people doing it. That's 30 different new surface areas of exposure for your business that you didn't have before, that you have no idea exists. So shadow IT, got to nip that in the bud. So interest payments. Instead of dollars, you pay with downtime. Those temporary workarounds, they're temporary. You're working around something, they are going to break. They're going to collapse again. You pay with employee frustration. This cannot be understated. We hear all the time from frustrated employees. Our service desk, that is what they do, is deal with frustrated people. And some of the frustrations, it's just, they're having a bad day, and nothing seems to be going right. And, that's just normal type of stuff. But if you add to that preventable things, that becomes a real problem. That becomes something that employees know is preventable, and they don't feel like they're getting the attention that they need. That's what leads to employee turnover, reduced functionality, and decreased morale. And that's hard to come back from. And that's a debt. That's a debt. It's all a debt. All of this is a debt that's hard to come back from. Big one that I talk about a lot is security risks. Security risks. Security risks. When you delay, when you don't make those decisions, then you are increasing your security risk sometimes dramatically. And it seems okay because nothing happened yesterday. Probably nothing's going to happen today. Maybe not tomorrow, but you know what? Someday something is going to happen. It will. I tell every customer, I tell every prospect, anybody that I talk to, partners, other just business owners that I network with, everybody, a breach will happen. It is an inevitability. It will happen. And the question is, how far are you going to let them go inside your network? That's it. By delaying security decisions, um, server upgrades, things like that, your risk is significantly increased. And then they can get further and further into your network. Compliance issues, just repeat everything I just said because that's where compliance comes in. Compliance means that you have to be doing these things for cybersecurity liability insurance, for regulatory agencies that, compliance frameworks that you have to follow, things like that. It means you have to do those things. But if you don't, you're actually out of compliance. And that bill will definitely come to due at auditing, or if you tell a falsehood on a self-attestation form, that can be pretty. That can get the consequences for that can be pretty steep. Another one, customer confidence. I mean, customers see that. Just this morning at the doctor's appointment, the person at check-in was complaining about the speed of their computers. Now we do kind of hear that type of thing a lot, and you kind of just dismiss that. But if you're trying to portray to your customers, this is not a doctor's office where I have to go. I don't have a choice, and that's how doctor's offices are, right? But for your customers, they can go anywhere. And for especially smaller businesses, small and medium businesses, we've got to retain and hold on to the clients that we have, the customers that we have. And so the last thing you want to do is reduce their confidence in um, the feasibility, the continuation of your business, things like that, because they know that a healthy business will take care of these types of things, and a well-run business won't allow these things to happen. Um, and then, of course, there's just the sheer expense of it all, like the actual expense, like dollars and cents of ongoing labor costs just to keep it working. You know, that on that image before with the bridge, with the duct tape didn't just appear. Somebody had to put it on there and a bunch of different times. And it's still duct tape on a bridge. That's still all that it is, despite the costs for putting it on the bridge. And it doesn't do very much for you at all. So think about the actual costs as well. It's not just figurative. Now, and it's not just regular interest, it's compound interest because they start as small decisions and they escalate into making something bigger. For example, one outdated server, we'll just keep it running for now. Old applications depend on it, becomes too risky or expensive to upgrade now because the old applications depend on it because they didn't get upgraded. So now you've got two systems that are old that need to be kept alive. But now you also can't upgrade Windows because the hardware and the applications, the outdated server and the outdated application, they're not compatible with the newer version of Windows. So you can't even upgrade to the latest version of Windows, which is not about it looking pretty. It's about it keeping it secure. That's it. Older versions of Windows, every year their Microsoft is end of lifing a previous version of Windows or Office, and so you have to keep that stuff. The versions have to be kept updated, and with an outdated server, outdated applications, can't upgrade Windows. Small decisions, big consequences. Now we can't enable, say, modern security, things like some types of multi-factor authentication, critically encryption. That's a thing that you can only do in newer operating systems is newer encryption levels. Now we can't turn on new encryption levels. It creates greater cyber risk. Some of our software that is standard in the industry, those types of solutions won't even work on older versions of Windows. So then you can't get modern security protections. And then, of course, cyber insurance gets harder, which means either higher premiums or straight out denial of coverage because of this old system that's in place. So you can see how small decisions they cascade, they lead to a costly ecosystem of one outdated server leading to a costly ecosystem that has to be kept and maintained and then eventually upgraded. And by the way, when you go to upgrade an old aging system, it's really hard and it's really expensive because now you have to get specialized people. The databases aren't compatible. It's like a snowball down the hill. It just gets bigger and bigger, the problem. Like everything, there's everything in this analogy, this financial analogy, there's good debt and then there's bad debt. So good debt is delaying a nice to have upgrade, an upgrade that you don't necessarily need, but would be nice to have because it would keep you on the cutting edge. Delaying that to the next year to where you're still safe, everything's still okay, and that's just delaying that particular decision. That's an example of good debt. Phasing projects, doing them in phases. That's great debt because while they still need to get done, it allows your users and your network to adjust. You can fix things as they go along. It keeps your scope a little bit smaller, so it's easier to troubleshoot. Phasing projects is very good. Strategic timing, figuring out what's best for your company, when to do it, and of course, budget planning. When you can afford to do it, with actual dollars and cents. So that's good debt, figuring those things out. Bad debt, though, is like in the last analogy, unsupported systems, security shortcuts, not having backups because just forgot to do it, didn't have the documentation, which is the next item that stated that we have to make sure we have backups to our systems, and delaying critical infrastructure, which is probably the reason why, in my experience this morning at the doctor's office, her computer ran really slow. It was probably an infrastructure problem, not a computer problem. Those are examples of bad debt. So paying down technology debt, just like financial debt, you just got to make a plan. Typically, and that's where we would come in and help you make a good decision for that. But often it's replacing the oldest servers and PCs first, removing unsupported software. Sometimes you got to do that at the exact same time because it's part and parcel of the same problem. Create a documentation policy. So, meaning let's get a policy in place where we're always documenting the business processes and the business infrastructure. And then going back to some of the examples that I used in previous slides, modernizing identity, meaning making sure that we're logging in with current security protocols. Excuse me. And then finally, what questions do we ask for as businesses? What do healthy businesses ask themselves? What technology are we afraid to touch? What breaks if one employee leaves? That's a big one. If one person leaves, what systems are going to break? What software do we have is no longer supported? What project do we have that we've postponed multiple times? And then here's a really great one. What would surprise us with a six-figure bill? I've been on the other end of that where I've delivered um, six-figure bills, and it's not pleasant. I feel bad for them, but it does. Some of these things do need to get done, and it's much easier to do it along the way. It's a much easier nugget to swallow with that. So with that, any questions about any of this stuff, Paris?
Yes, we got a couple good questions in here. How do I know when delaying an upgrade is financially smart versus reckless?
Um, if it's strategic, and I mean genuinely strategic, not like, like a placating type of language. Oh, I think we're going to be strategic and do this next year. I mean, like genuinely strategic, acknowledging that it needs to be done. Step one. Step two, saying, but we can't because of something that directly ties to the business's income, survival, or something like that. Something that the business genuinely needs. It's because there's literally something more important. That being said, understanding its importance is crucial too, because if we're talking about modernizing security, modernizing your identity, like I used a few times as an example here, you can't delay that. You will get breached. It will happen. And that's the thing to look at when dealing with something strategically here is you have to tell yourself, I am going to get breached. And if I get breached this year, am I okay with the consequences of not put doing this upgrade or taking this next step in the project or something like that? So,
How do I explain technology debt to my CFO or ownership group?
I you can certainly use the financial analogy, especially to a CFO. Take some of the slide deck, reach out to me with some other examples. We can help troubleshoot and make that a strategic conversation. But that's the route that I would go. I would talk to the CFO. I would talk to your CEO and explain to them that this is just like anything else. And use it. It doesn't have to be a financial analogy. It can be an analogy. If you're a machine shop and you've got a really old table router or something like that, and the repair costs are getting higher and higher, and the day is coming when it's just going to break one day. Well, for a CEO, that probably makes a lot of sense for them, uh, that they know that is going to need to be replaced. If you're in waste management and um, you've got the trash trucks that drive around and they pick up the trash, right? And they pick it up from the dumpster and they dump it into the back. And they think it's really important to get a new fleet of trash trucks that are faster, but the other ones work okay. They're just slower. Um, versus looking at a serious cybersecurity hole on their network. It that they need to understand the risk that both of those projects, if they can only do one in a year, what the risk of what both of those projects have for their business. The risk of slower trash trucks is that they're capping some of their profitability opportunities. The risk of cybersecurity is their entire business could be taken from them. So those are the types of conversations to have with them and kind of bring it to a relatable level with analogies and other examples that they understand. And remember too that, for the IT managers that are on this call, it's not just about, telling them some stuff and letting the decision be theirs. It's about making impressing upon them you have a moral obligation to tell them just how dangerous this is for them. They are owed the persistence and the dedication from you to express just how dire the risk truly is for them. And then if they don't do it, well, that's on them. But many business owners, CEOs, and CFOs, people in leadership, aren't equipped to make great decisions because they just aren't pushed hard enough to understand how great the risk really actually is.
Should I finance technology refreshes instead of buying everything outright?
Yeah, yeah, you can. Yeah, definitely. You can do a dollar buyout lease. You can finance it, through your bank. We have credit. We have leasing agencies that we work with that we can refer to you. It's definitely it's preferable to doing nothing. That's for sure. I know everybody wants to buy it outright, and that really would be great. But if you can't afford to do it, it's perfectly fine to pay it over time and get the security now, and to get that debt taken care of now. The interest on that will almost certainly be less than the technical interest and pushing the debt forward in time, where you'll be paying the money anyway. So let's get it paid now when it's cheaper and lower, even with a lease, the interest that you'd paying for, a 3 or 5 year lease.
Where do most businesses have the largest hidden technology debt?
It's software for sure. Software. There's other places where stuff hides, definitely, but the biggest one that a lot of businesses have is in their software, either with shadow IT for employees doing a whole lot of things that they're not aware of, or with old unsupported software that needs to be migrated and moved. Because it's a big lift, it's a big project, it's very expensive, and that can easily run 6 figures. And there's not a lot of appetite to spend 6 figures on something that currently works. However, the day that it stops working is the day that you wish that you would have spent the money. So that's some of the biggest areas because it's not just about that unsupported software. It's about the aging server hardware, the aging security frameworks that it works under, things like that, that can pose significant risk to the functioning of your business, the survival of your business.
How do you prioritize which technical debt gets paid down first?
Yeah, I that's a case by case basis. So, um, because when we look at stuff, we'd want to we would analyze it based on a typical risk assessment, liability, and impact. Um, there's more to it than just that. Also, because there's the cost. So, the loss of your line of business application would be high impact, and if it's also high likelihood and high cost, got to be budgeted for. So there is that has to be taken into account. And also you don't jump into that project uh, like that. You really have to plan that out for it to be successful. Versus aging server hardware or aging switches or PCs, they can be handled much more quickly. And with much you can jump right into that type of a project more quickly. So it really goes on a case by case basis. Um, we've been called into situations that are utterly dire and have had to just take that big nugget and just run with it right away because because everything was literally falling apart. So kind of depends, case by case basis, really. It's actually hard to answer that question without knowing more specifics.
All right, we've got one more question. Is cloud migration reducing debt or just moving it somewhere else?
Well, it depends on where you move your cloud to. So cloud migration just means that you're moving it from a private server in your office to a public server that someone else has. So it could be you might be using going to Microsoft Azure or AWS, Amazon Web Services. Those are very safe places. And if you're keeping up with your software upgrades, then that's really not transferring it anywhere else. Um, However, if you are moving it to a cloud application, a SaaS application, and they aren't maintaining their application well, actually, in that case, you are transferring it to something else. So that's another situation where there's a case by case basis. In general, moving to the cloud can be very helpful, although it is often very expensive. And so that's where we can help you with those numbers. We can work those numbers up. We can help you figure those types of things out.
All right, that was the last question. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Our next office hour session is going to be on August 12th. You can join using the same link that you used today. Feel free to send that to anyone in your organization that you think would benefit from attending these sessions, and we will see you at the next one. Bye, everybody.